Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. And today, I am really pleased to have with me on the line Farzad Rashidi. Farzad is the lead innovator at Respona, right? That's the correct way to say
You
it?
got it.
All right, cool. So Farzad is the lead innovator at Respona, the all-in-one digital PR and link building software that combines personalization with productivity. He also runs marketing at Visme, where he helps the company gain over 11 million users and passes over 2 million visits of monthly organic traffic. And today he's sharing one of his keys for success and telling us all about how informational content can drive more traffic to your website. So, I'm really excited about this conversation today. Farzad, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, we were talking a little bit on the pre-call on how your trajectory of how you got to where you are today. So, you've been working at Visme for a while. You've helped them grow to some really high numbers, and you broke off part of the tool that you had to build out of necessity in order to build Respana. Can you please talk a little bit about how you got your start and where and how you got to where you are today with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So just in a nutshell, basically when I joined Visme, and for folks who haven't heard of Visme before, it's an all-in-one brand content creation platform. So say you got a business, got a bunch of people who are working in your team, creating any sort of content like documents, presentations, and whatnot. You want to keep everything on brand, and not everybody obviously is a designer. So basically, Visme is a platform that enables you to be able to enable your team to create beautifully looking professional content in a matter of a few seconds. And when I joined the company of Visme, it was quite a funny story. I reached out to the founder. The product was still in beta, and we were basically still in the process of building the product. And I fell in love with it instantly. And I reached out to the founder and started basically as a marketing person for the first time. They were not focused on marketing up until that point. And one of the first issues that we started facing very, I would say, early on was that due to our, I would say, price point, since Visme is not a $10,000 a year platform, it's designed to be quite affordable for businesses of all sizes. It wasn't really justifying the costs to go and hire a bunch of salespeople and AEs and SDRs. And paid advertising was getting more expensive by the day. So the only scalable way we could sort of bring in the amount of volume that we needed in terms of incoming customers was through organic traffic, and basically positioning ourselves in places where when our potential customers are looking for a product like ours would naturally come and find us instead of. And the process of basically creating pieces of content, and then we started sort of listening to the good old generic advice of, hey, yeah, you got to start a blog, you got to start putting together some content pieces. We did just that, and it was crickets. And basically, what we figured is that content promotion really was the key in order to sort of pour gasoline on the fire and increase our organic traffic and start getting more competitive in the Google search results. And that whole basically process of content promotion led us to the creation of Respana, which is sort of an internal software that we built ourselves internally for our marketing team. And it just worked tremendously well for us in terms of cutting down the cost and the time it would take for us to do any sort of promotion tactics. And we were like, all right, guys, this is awesome. Let's go ahead and put this out as a standalone product. Sure, we can help a ton of other companies who are also looking to do content marketing and also are looking to increase our organic traffic. And that's how we ended up with Respana. So that's sort of the backstory there.
What's really interesting about your tool and some of the others that are in this space is that it has been drilled into our heads as digital marketers that content is king, right? And I would say that was true, maybe like 5 years ago, but there really is a big shift going on because now there are these more nuanced ways in order to get your content. I mean, I I think the big elephant in the room is, first of all, YouTube as the second largest search engine, right? And then you have all these different ways that you can consume content. It's not just Apple Podcasts anymore. Now you can get your podcasts on Spotify and all these other tools. And you also hit it a little bit on the head where you can't just go and publish a bunch of blogs and expect people to come. There has to be some kind of promotion. There has to be some kind of plan that yeah, that helps drive this whole thing. So when you guys put this together, like when you were building this out, what were some of the key drivers that you were thinking about that would be able to help you innovate specifically in this space, to the exclusion of others that weren't necessarily as good?
Yeah, absolutely. And so basically, one of the, I would say, here's the thing: content is sort of a puzzle. You got to have all the pieces of the puzzle together. So generating good quality content is equally as important as your site structure, and is equally as important as your promotion tactics. So you got to sort of do everything right. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time and money. So the first thing we normally, again, you have to remember that we didn't just sit down and we were like, okay, here's a roadmap, here's what we're going to do. This is something that we learned through trial and error over the years, right? And so don't think that we were some sort of geniuses that came up with all this processes. No, a lot of it's going to be common sense, but stuff that we sort of learned as we went on and experimented with different things to see what works. So one of the first most important things was in the process of content creation was our site structure. So basically, we have a very clear-cut process in terms of how we structure our website, and that's normally the foundation for any of our efforts. And that is, we pick a few parent keywords. So say, for example, Visme is a content creation platform. So our parent keywords are like presentations and infographics and whatnot. So once we and any business can come up with those, right? So for Responder, for example, that would be link building or digital PR or podcast outreach, right? And basically, once we have a few parent keywords that these are our ideal, I would say golden keywords we want to build our site around, then we go ahead and basically build these sales landing pages that are catered directly for people who are looking for a service like that. So for example, for presentations, we create a sales page called presentation software, right? Now the problem becomes when you have a sales page that says presentation software, and then when you put it out and there's about 6 billion other search results who have that target keyword. So how are you going to actually be competitive enough for it to get yourself pushed up to the top 10 results where 99% of the action happens? So that's where the topical authority comes in. So Google would like to basically prioritize search results that are an authoritative figure in that space. So basically what we had to do was and the way you can establish yourself as an authoritative figure is to start creating pieces of content around that topic. So we went ahead and started basically, so for each one of our parent keywords, and now we have a sales page, we have SEO's, that fancy way of calling it is content silos, right? We call it just content categories. So for example, for presentations, you create a category on your website and you write educational pieces of content covering longer tail versions of that keyword. So for example, how to make a presentation, or how do I deliver a presentation effectively, right? So, and now the process of identifying these keywords and prioritizing them obviously is another 30 minutes of conversation. And I actually have written an ebook about this. And if folks are interested in learning more, you can just Google Visme marketing strategy. And then one of the top search results is going to be a PDF that I wrote back in 2019 that I sort of outlined the process from start to finish. But basically, once we have these pieces of content ready, now we reference our landing pages and the content pieces that we're writing. So for example, if I'm writing about how to make a presentation, we also reference our presentation software landing page in there. But then that's sort of the structure of the website. And that's normally, it's like in the agricultural world, they call it like we made the land ready to go plant our seeds. So what's going to happen is that you start producing content Some of it's going to stick. Most of it isn't. It's not, people aren't just going to magically show up at your website and start reading your content, right? Unless you're Apple. So what we basically started realizing soon after is the next step of content, which is what content promotion. And that was something that a lot of other businesses skip because it's such a pain in the neck process that nobody really wants to do or talk about. But we use that as an opportunity to start standing out from the rest of the world. So basically what we started doing is to dedicate our resources, using the 80-20 rule, right? So 20% of our resources went into content creation, so creating quality pieces of content. And we weren't producing a ton, like maybe 1 or 2 a month at the time, right? Now, obviously, we have more resources and we spend more resources on that. But back in the day, we were just putting 1 piece of content out or 2 every month. And then the rest of the month, the 80% of our resources go into content promotion. And that is finding specific places where people that we would reach out to and incentivize other folks to reference our article. And virtually over time, what happens is that once other websites in your space are talking about you, linking back to you in eyes of Google and other search engines, that's a vote of popularity. So that increases what we call your overall domain authority and also helps these particular content pieces to start getting rankings. And repeat, rinse and repeat. So that's sort of the general process, I would say.
I like the way you drew all that out. First of all, thank you for, being so clear and, really painting the big picture here. I think what a lot of people, sometimes get lost in the weeds or maybe it's more like overwhelm is trying to figure out what type of content to create, right? So we're not just, this isn't just a blog post on, the 5 different ways to, to rank a keyword. Right. It's got to be something a little bit more impactful. It's got to be,
That's right.
It's got to talk directly to your target market, and it's got to be written in a way that it's easy to navigate and that it's, better than all of the other ones out there. Because just writing a 1,000-word blog post, putting up a few screenshots and saying, okay, here's my authority piece, it better be damn good. Right. It better be, really, really informational. And that's really the crux of what we're talking about here, right? Is that you really need to prioritize creating content that people can use, right? The content that people can, that not just people, I should say, like your prospective customers, right? Because you want them to come over to your site and, understand that you are the authority in this particular space. You want to make sure that they are the ones that that their company is the one that's going to be publishing this. What would you say is like a really good way for companies to really approach this part? Of not just putting out content for the sake of putting out content, but content for being informational, being an authoritative figure, and to actually get some traction after it's published.
No, that's a really good question, Jeff, because nobody believes that their content is bad. If you ask any business owner, like, hey, you need to create quality content. And most of the time they respond with, we are. Go to our blog, they're all cool. So the process of identifying opportunities for content it's quite a scientific process. We sort of got it down to a science. And the way we've sort of implemented this in a step-by-step format is, let me actually walk you through it, I think, just to paint you a picture. So say we want to create content for Respana. So one of our biggest keywords or parent keywords is, for example, link building, right? Now, what we do as a parent keyword, we use some SEO tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush. If you've heard of, I'm sure you've heard of them, Jeff. But if the audience hasn't heard of them, I highly recommend taking a look at that. There are also some free alternatives out there. But basically, we identify some of the longer tailed variations of that keywords. Obviously, link building in and out of itself is a very high volume, very highly competitive keyword. But then we understand, okay, what are some of the questions that people are asking or keywords that people are searching for that is relevant to that parent topic? And then these tools normally give you a gazillion these keywords. For example, how to build backlinks to your website, or what is link building, right? Now you got a million of these, and normally they give you metrics in terms of, okay, here's how much volume they're getting, here's how competitive they are. And then what we do then is to drop these numbers into a little formula we put together, which I'll call the opportunity keywords, or the opportunity score. And it's a very simple formula, and that is, okay, we ideally want to find keywords that get high volume in terms of number of clicks. So these are keywords that people are actually actively searching for, right? That's normally the first step. You don't want to be writing about stuff that nobody's searching for. Number two is that it not only has to be a high volume keyword, but it also needs to have high commercial intent, right? So you want to prioritize content pieces that are normally at more the bottom of the funnel, or content pieces that have some sort of commercial value. And the way we measure that is by the CPC for that keyword, meaning if other advertisers are willing to pay Google for that keyword, it's very likely that they're actually making money out of it. So just it's a signal that that keyword has some commercial value. And the third pillar is competitiveness. So normally these SEO tools give you a metric from 0 to 100 called keyword difficulty. And that basically is just basically telling you, okay, how likely is it that if you put out a piece of content, it's going to get rankings, because some keywords are getting dominated by some of the big guys like Apple and Google, right? So they're very hard to rank for. And so not only, I'm not discouraging folks not to create content if there's one big company ranking for it, but you want to ideally prioritize keywords that have lower competition compared to the rest of them. Now, the overlap in between these three scores is what we call the opportunity keywords. So you want to just pop it right into this formula that I discussed in the ebook, and then sort it. Now you're going to end up with a list of, obviously, 10 to 20 keywords that you're trying to really rank for. Now, these are the ones that you want to prioritize. Then the second step is to understand what's the user intent for these keywords. So the way you can understand user intent is by dropping that keyword in Google, see what's the majority of the posts that come up. And normally, for example, if you go and look up link building software, there are just, landing pages, sales pages of other companies, so meaning that people aren't necessarily looking to do much research on it. They're looking to try out some tools. It's a very bottom of the funnel keyword. If you look at what is link building, that's a super top of the funnel keyword. People are looking to just understand what it is. They're not ready to purchase. They're just doing some research. So depending on the user intent for each keyword, you want to create a page on your website that caters to that. It doesn't necessarily even have to be text content. If it's, for example, how to make cookies, it's probably a YouTube video, right, at the top of the search results. Or it could be an ultimate guide, it could be a sales page, it could be a template page, it could be any sort of content, right? So you just want to create a piece of content that your users are looking for. And the answer to that and how it would look like is quite clear. The structure, you see a clear trend as you analyze the top 10 search results for that keyword, because Google is constantly running A/B tests, and they've got it down to a science of, okay, if somebody's looking for these keywords, here's the type of content normally what they're looking for. Okay, now that we have the target keyword and exactly what is the user intent, now we put together some more information, create a content brief, send it to our content team, and they start doing some research and make the best guide or template or whatever that is compared to the other 10 search, the top 10 search results. And we have some obviously quality metrics in terms of, okay, obviously we're a design tool, so like on the Visme side, so there's a lot more design going on, make sure that the templates look good. And the responder side, people are more analytical, so like, okay, let's throw some numbers in there, right? Let's do some original research. And then once that content piece is out, that's about, I would say, 20% of our resources, right? So that's where the content creation aspect comes in. And most people, once they get to that point, just publish it in their newsletter, post it on social, and call it a day. And we use that as an opportunity. You're like, okay, well, 99% don't do this. Now let's go ahead and promote the heck out of this content piece, make sure now it starts getting ranking at the top of the search results. Now we actually get some traffic in the door.
So what's interesting about that whole thing is that you just made what should have been a 1,000-word blog post about a specific topic And some people's minds like, oh my God, that sounds way too complicated. Why am I even doing this? Right. Let's talk a little bit about the net result of what happens when you go through this whole exercise. What actually happens then? Like, how does it actually help your business once you become this intentful with creating informational content as opposed to just, churning out production pieces is what I call them, just things, to fill up a page. What
That's
is the
right.
net result of, when you create something that is super informational, super useful, gets on a landing page that, that has a distinct call to action, and then you can collect the lead. how does how does that support the end result, which is bringing in new customers and bringing in new leads to the business?
Absolutely. So, Jeff, the reason why we're going through all these hoops is because we are a small company with limited resources, right? If we had unlimited resources, there's no point in all this. You should just churn out as many pieces of content as you can. So, the fact is, smaller companies with more limited resources need to be a lot smarter in terms of how they utilize those resources. And that's why we care so much about, okay, what do we need to prioritize that has the highest impact in the lowest amount of time? So that's number one. Now, just to paint you a picture, just so we understand why we have to do this in the first place. So as I mentioned, Visme is now getting over 2 million in monthly organic traffic. Now, let me ask you a question, Jeff. If we were to pay AdWords for this amount of traffic and the number of signups that we're getting organic channels, which is around 20 to 25,000 new users every day, we spend very little on paid advertising, no cold outreach. How much do you think we would have to pay AdWords to bring the same level of traffic and signups through paid channels?
You
Throw a
would be
number.
you would be 5 figures a month at least.
Go
Just
higher.
yeah, I mean, yeah, because that's really what and even if you're to utilize, all the different aspects of, how you put together, like Google ads, whether it's just, whether it's retargeted ads or display ads or whatever, so, some of those ads are cheaper than others. But the bottom line is that you're going to pay a king's ransom to bring that kind of traffic to your site if you didn't have anything else going for it. There's this friend of mine, Rob Curtis. He has this great quote. He says, paid advertising is the tax you pay for being unremarkable, right? And that's basically what we're talking about here, right? Is that if you're going, you need to somehow demonstrate just how remarkable you are. And if you're not, well, now you got to pay people to come and see just how unremarkable you are, right? So you're right. It's it's a huge number, and if you were to depend purely on like spending all that money just to get eyes on it, it's probably not even going to be as good quality traffic than if people were actually searching for that kind of informational content that you're delivering, that you're delivering, right? I mean, that's
That's
really
right.
the crux of what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, and what I meant to say wasn't to say that I'm against paid advertising. I think paid advertising is great for a lot of purposes. Like I love retargeting ads, that Facebook ads, right? That's a really good way to, now that I have some traffic, now let's try to remind them to come back, right? A lot of people normally need 6 to 7 touch points before they decide to make a purchase. And we do invest in some paid advertising. So it's, by no means I'm saying don't do paid ads. It's just another channel. But the problem with paid ads is that since they use a bidding system, the cost per acquisition is just going off the roof, and it's increasing. It's like doubled or tripled compared to the net. I think since even last year, it's doubled for us at least. So it's becoming increasingly more difficult to justify the ROI. Now, all I'm trying to say is that not to do it, but to paint you a picture. If you were to rely on AdWords to bring in the same amount of traffic, we estimate it would cost us around $1.4 million a month in AdWords. And you have to also take into account that we're a bootstrap company. So that's never
That
in the
is a
cards.
crazy number. That is a crazy number. I mean, think about it. Spending $1 million on anything is, it is it is rather huge. But at the end of the day, what kind of quality would you be bringing in? Because like one of the things I tell people to do, right, is to go to a shopping mall, go to any regional shopping mall, wherever you are, stand in the middle and count how many bags, people are walking around with, right? Each one of those bags is a conversion. Somebody walked into a store, bought something, and walked out with a product, right? But if you're just bringing, a stadium full of people to inundate a shopping mall, but they don't buy anything, right? That because that's exactly what paid ads are doing, is that they're bringing people in, but it's still your job to convert them to do an action, right? You still need them to give their email address so that you can give them the ebook. You still need them to click on something so that they can like, oh my God, I got to purchase this, right? There's still a lot more work to do. So, like when you look at that, paid ads number, in order to get that kind of traffic, you better be on your A game to deliver something, once they get there, because otherwise, it's like a billboard on I-95. You look at it, it's like, oh, that's nice. I'll pass by it again tomorrow. Thank you. Right. And it's like what you really need them to do is to take action. Right.
That's right. Yeah, and it's not about it. All I'm trying to say is that very little businesses have the opportunity to spend, unless you're Coca-Cola, right, to spend $1.4 million a month in AdWords. It's just not realistic for 99% of businesses I know. So all I'm trying to say is that yes, SEO is complicated. It is a lot of work. I'm not trying to underestimate the amount of resources it would take. But what I'm trying to say is that it's supposed to be difficult. It is a competitive advantage. No single business can come tomorrow and just knock Visme out of the market just because we've built a level of authority and traffic over the years. It's very difficult to reproduce. And it is supposed to be a barrier to entry. And that's what we're also replicating in Respana. So Respana itself, I think we launched our content marketing strategy January of last year, January 2020. Now it's November 2021, so a little less than 2 years. Now it's bringing about 70,000 monthly organic visitors to our website. That's almost equivalent to about 40, 50K, if I'm actually more. I think it's around 50, 60K worth of AdWords that we're getting every month. Again, you have to also consider the ROI you're getting from that level of organic traffic. Now, our goal is to hit 100, hopefully by the end of the year. So we'll see whatever we get there. But these numbers all sound great. But matter of fact is that most businesses don't get to this point. They do invest in some content, they hire SEO, they start putting together this stuff in place, and it just doesn't work. And the missing factor, almost in most cases, is their off-page SEO and their promotion tactics and their link building process. Just because it's not something that's directly under your control, right? So you can control the content on your website. You can control creating good content. But getting other people to mention you and reference you, getting other people to do anything for you is always a lot more difficult than what's directly under control. And that's sort of where Responder sort of comes in, is to help you now that you have these pieces of content, the right site structure in place. Now let's go do some promotion and actually pour some gasoline on a fire, the way I would put it.
I love it. I love that explanation. Thank you so much for sharing that. Farzad, can you please let everyone know how they can learn more about Respana and how they can reach out to you directly if they'd like to learn more?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So Respana, our product, you can access at respana.com. That's RESPONA.com. And my name is Farzad Rashidi. So there's not a whole lot of Farzad Rashidis in the world. So if you look me up on LinkedIn, you're most likely going to find me. So yeah, that's the best way to contact me. But here's what I would put it. And here's the way I would put it, Jeff. By no means I want this presentation to be directly about, okay, if you're not purchasing Responder, you're not going to get any traffic, right? Most businesses, in fact, aren't at the level or at the stage that they would need a tool like Responder. What I'm trying to encourage folks is that go start doing some research, start putting together the right site structure. That process normally starts at deleting the junk stuff that you have on your website, right? It's just eating into your crawl budget. Simplify your website, get rid of the stuff that's not getting any traffic or have any sort of backlinks. start putting together really quality pieces of content, following the process I talk about in that little free ebook I have, Visme Marketing Strategy. Then once you have some pieces of content out, don't go spend all this money on all these fancy tools. Start doing some promotion yourself, directly, manually. Again, none of this rocket science. It's just contacting on the websites, building a relationship with them. Again, there's 1,000 different link building strategies. I've mentioned some of that in the ebook. And once you have that process nailed down, then it becomes very difficult to scale, right? And once you hit a point that you're like, okay, I can't do this by myself manually, I need some help. That's where sort of Responder would be helpful. Is that, okay, now that you got a process down, that's great. Let's 100x that, right? So sort of puts a lot of the dirty work on autopilot in terms of finding, okay, what websites do we need to contact? Who is the right person at these websites that we need to contact? What's their direct verified contact information? All right, let's connect your email, send them an email, send them a connection request on LinkedIn. A lot of that stuff is sort of automated for you so you can focus more on personalization. That's sort of the whole promise of the platform.
Amazing stuff. Farzad, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a lot of fun. I love nerding out on this stuff. It's like, it's great not only to talk shop, but there's so much in this world of how to market yourself that you and I'm sure we can talk for hours on this. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.